Alright, so we're going to wire up this level shifter to run the Grove RGB display without using the sensor board. So the first thing we're going to do is bring over power from the 96 board. So we've got a Dragon Board 410C, and I've got it hooked up to pin 39, which is right here on the bottom edge of the low speed connector. Pin 39 is ground, and I'll hook that to the ground bus on the breadboard. The next thing we need is 1.8 volts. This is the low voltage side. And when I say low voltage, this is in respect to between 1.8 and 5 volts. Now the 96 board has a high voltage side which is 5 volts. So we'll put that right into the bus on the other side. Now the other thing we need to do is jumper the ground bus. So we go from blue bus on one side to the other, so now everything is a shared ground. So it's all hooked up. So the first thing we're going to do is go from the relatively low voltage side of 1.8 volts and take that to the third pin in on the end, which is the low voltage in. The level shifter also requires ground. So we'll plug that in, and that's the pin right next to it. So now we've wired up the low voltage side. Now we need to wire up the high voltage side, so we go from the relatively speaking higher voltage of 5 volts to the same pin, pin 3, which is labeled HV. And we're going to go from the ground to the next pin next to it. And at this point, the level shifter is active. We've got low voltage in of 1.8 volts on this side, which will be level shifted to the higher voltage of 5 volts on this side. Now for the purposes of this demonstration, the next thing we've got to do is bring off the I2C bus from the computer. So on pins 15 and 17 are I2C bus 0, and we'll bring those directly in, and we'll take the yellow pins and go in on pin 1 of the level shifter, and we'll take the pin 17 and go in on pin 2 of the level shifter. So now we're level shifting the output of the output and input to the board on pins 15 and 17, and we bring them over and put them on the low voltage side of the level shifter. So now we need to bring out the connection. So we're going to come out of the level shifter on pin 1 on the high speed side, or the high voltage side, sorry. And we're going to grab pin 2 of the high voltage side. Okay, now we need to power up the display without blowing things up, so very carefully plug in the black wire to the ground. This is a 5 volt device, so plug it into the 5 volt bus. So now we have plugged it in, and if you note, you can just barely see a little activity. So now I'll run the RGB LCD demo code, which will come off the Dragon board through the level shifter and out to the 5 volt side, and it immediately initializes the board. And as you can see, it's looping around and around to red, green, and blue. So everything is working as expected. So here we have just a straight level shifter. It's a couple of dollar device that you can pick up from SparkFun, or there's other ones available on Amazon for even cheaper than SparkFun. And I particularly like this style, and we'll talk about it in the text, but it works really well, even though we've got nearly a foot of wire going from the Dragon board over to the level shifter. It is working exactly as one would expect. Now how can I prove this is actually working? Well, we're sending I2C commands to shift the color in the text. So if I simply disconnect the I2C bus, it'll quit changing. So there is the proof that we had it up, wired up, and it was working. And if I very carefully stick the wires back in where they belong, since the bus is initialized, it'll just start taking I2C commands again. So again, this is 1.8 volts to 5 volts on this side. The next video we're going to hook up is we're going to take the I2C bus, but we're going to go into the temperature sensor, which is a 1.8 volt device, so we won't need a level shifter. And we'll get that running. So thank you very much. Have a good day.